The silence was wrong. Staff Sergeant Kira, Phantom, Thorne knew this kind of silence, the kind that preceded catastrophe. Through her headset, static crackled where urgent voices should have been coordinating the most critical extraction of the war. Below, somewhere in the Afghan mountains, 12 Navy SEALs were fighting for their lives against overwhelming odds, and their eyes in the sky had gone dark. The MQ-9 Reaper's camera feed showed nothing but digital snow. The satellite uplink had been severed. Ground control was receiving fragmented transmissions, each one more desperate than the last. "Phantom, we're going in blind down here," came the voice of Lieutenant Commander Marcus Reed, call sign Viper 6. His usual confidence was cracking. "We need eyes on target. Immediate." Kira's fingers danced across her control station aboard the AC-130J Ghost Rider, call sign Spectre 77. The massive gunship circled at 22,000 feet, invisible against the star-drunk sky. Her crew, pilot Captain James Roadkill Morrison, navigator First Lieutenant Alina Maps Vasquez, and sensor operator Technical Sergeant David Scanner Park, had been dismissed by Ground Command 3 hours earlier. "Stand down, Spectre. We've got this covered with the drone," they'd said. Now the drone was useless, and 12 of America's finest were trapped in a kill box with no backup plan. "Phantom, you still up there?" Viper 6's voice cut through static, raw with desperation. Morrison keyed his mic before Kira could respond. "Negative, Viper. We've been ordered to maintain holding pattern only. No engagement authorization." Kira's jaw tightened. She'd heard this tone before in boardrooms where men in pressed uniforms made decisions about battles they'd never fight. 3 Purple Hearts and a distinguished flying cross meant nothing when politics trumped tactics. They called her Phantom not because she was invisible, but because they wished she would disappear. "Viper 6, this is Phantom." She switched to the ground team's frequency, bypassing command channels. "I've got thermal imaging and night vision capabilities independent of the drone network. My systems are hardened against their jamming." "Negative, Phantom," Morrison snapped over internal comms. "We don't have authorization for—" "12 men are about to die," Kira interrupted, her voice steady as winter steel. "You want to explain that to their families because we followed protocol." The night sky stretched endlessly around their aircraft, indifferent to human suffering. But Kira had learned long ago that the sky remembered everything, every mission, every life saved or lost, every moment when courage made the difference between heroes and casualties. Tonight, she would make the sky remember her name. Down in the mountains, Viper 6's breathing grew labored over the radio. Time was running out, and with it, any chance of bringing America's warriors home alive. The massive AC-130J Ghost Rider banked left, its 4 turboprop engines humming with barely contained power. Inside the aircraft's sophisticated sensor bay, Kira Thorne's hands moved with surgical precision across multiple displays. The AN/APG-180 fire control radar painted the mountainous terrain below in crisp detail, while her thermal imaging system cut through the darkness that had blinded the Reaper drone. "Phantom, we're taking heavy fire from multiple positions," Viper 6 transmitted, his words punctuated by the distinctive crack of AK-47s. "Estimate 40-plus hostiles. We're pinned down in a dried riverbed, coordinates 34.2847 north, 69.1382 east." Kira cross-referenced the position with her targeting computer. The geography was brutal, a narrow canyon surrounded by rocky outcroppings that provided perfect concealment for enemy fighters. The SEALs had walked into a carefully prepared ambush. "I've got your position, Viper 6, Kira replied, her voice calm despite the chaos unfolding below. "Marking 12 friendly signatures in the riverbed, multiple hostile positions on the ridgelines." Morrison's voice crackled over internal comms. "Phantom, we still don't have clearance to engage. Command wants us to wait for body bags." Scanner interrupted from his position at the sensor station. His display showed muzzle flashes erupting from at least 6 different positions around the trapped seals. Those guys are getting chewed up down there. Map studied her navigation charts, calculating wind patterns and escape routes. If we're going to do something, it has to be now. Weather front moving in from the west will have zero visibility in 30 minutes. Kira zoomed her thermal optics to maximum magnification. She could see individual heat signatures, the seals clustered behind minimal cover, returning fire with disciplined burst patterns, while enemy fighters moved through prepared positions with tactical precision. This wasn't a random encounter. It was a sophisticated trap designed to eliminate America's most elite warriors. Viper 6, what's your ammunition status? Kira asked. Running low, maybe 10 minutes of sustained fire left. Reed's voice was tight with pain. He'd been hit, though he wasn't advertising the fact. We need immediate extraction or immediate fire support. Morrison banked the aircraft in a slow, deliberate circle, maintaining their holding pattern. Phantom, I'm ordering you to maintain current posture. We wait for authorization. Kira's eyes found the small photograph taped to her console. Her younger brother Tommy in his army dress blues, killed by an IED in Fallujah because air support had been delayed by bureaucratic hesitation. She'd sworn on his grave that she'd never let red tape cost American lives again. Copy that, roadkill, she said aloud, then switched to a discrete frequency. Viper 6, this is Phantom on Channel 7. You didn't hear this from me, but your best egress route is northeast through the secondary canyon. Enemy strength is lightest in that sector. Below, the battle raged on, while above, one woman prepared to choose between following orders and saving lives. The stars wheeled overhead, silent witnesses to a decision that would define her career and her conscience. The radio erupted with panicked voices as the situation deteriorated. Man down, shouted Petty Officer Second Class Tyler Mongoose Rodriguez, corpsman up. Through her thermal imaging, Kira watched one of the SEAL signatures collapse and go still. Her training kicked in, emotions locked away behind years of combat experience. She began calculating firing solutions while her crew argued over protocol. That's 11 men still fighting, she announced over internal comms. Ammunition critical, wounded in the mix, and zero backup on the way. Morrison's knuckles were white on the controls. Phantom, I cannot authorize weapons release without. Then don't authorize it. Kira's fingers moved to the weapons control panel. The AC-130J's arsenal was devastating. A 25 MGAU 23A autocannon, 40 Bofors cannon, and 105 howitzer. In the right hands, it could turn the tide of any ground battle. This is my call, my responsibility. Scanner leaned forward in his harness. I'm with Phantom. Those boys are getting slaughtered down there. Maps nodded grimly. Firing solutions calculated and ready. Wind is negligible, visibility optimal. Viper 6, you need to mark your perimeter with infrared strobes, Kira transmitted. I'm coming in hot. Phantom negative, Morrison's voice rose. I'm ordering you to. You're ordering me to watch American servicemen die, Kira snapped back. I've got a clean shot on the primary enemy position. I can break their advance and give the SEALs a fighting chance. Reed's voice crackled through the static. Phantom, we're almost out of time here. Whatever you're going to do. Kira's crosshairs settled on a cluster of enemy fighters positioned on the eastern ridgeline. They'd been pouring concentrated fire into the riverbed, keeping the SEALs pinned while other fighters maneuvered for the killing blow. One precise strike could collapse their entire tactical advantage. Weapons hot, she announced. Phantom, stand down, Morrison shouted. But Kira was already pulling the trigger. The 40 Bofors cannon thundered, sending high-explosive rounds streaking through the night sky. The shells impacted with devastating precision, turning the enemy strong point into a ball of flame and flying rock. Secondary explosions suggested they'd hit an ammunition cache. Direct hit on primary target, scanner confirmed. Multiple enemy casualties confirmed. Through the radio, she could hear the change in Viper 6's voice, hope replacing desperation. Phantom, that was beautiful. Enemy fire has slackened significantly. We're moving to new positions. Morrison's face was stone in the cockpit lighting. You've just ended your career, Staff Sergeant. Kira kept her eyes on the target zone, watching for movement. Maybe, but those men are going home to their families tonight. The night sky stretched endlessly around them, and for the first time in hours, the silence felt right. Spectre 77, this is ground control. The voice of Colonel Patricia Hawkins cut through the radio chatter like a blade. You are operating outside mission parameters. Explain your weapons release immediately. Morrison keyed his mic before Kira could respond. Ground control, we engaged hostile forces threatening friendly positions. Staff Sergeant Thorne acted to prevent imminent loss of American lives. That's not your call to make, Captain, Hawkins replied coldly. Return to base immediately for debriefing. Below, the tactical situation was rapidly evolving. The destruction of the primary enemy position had created a gap in their defensive line, but the remaining fighters were already adapting. Through her thermal optics, Kira watched them shift positions, attempting to re-establish their killing fields. Viper 6, you've got multiple hostiles moving to reinforce the western ridgeline, she transmitted. Recommend you bound northeast while they're repositioning. Copy Phantom, we're moving now. Reed's voice was stronger. The SEAL medic had stabilized their wounded teammate. Can you keep their heads down while we displace? Kira's fingers hovered over the weapons controls. Another engagement would mean court-martial for certain, but the alternative was watching good men die while politicians argued over authorization codes. Scanner's voice was urgent. Phantom, I'm tracking 12, no, 15 hostiles converging on the SEAL's new position. They're trying to cut off the escape route. Maps checked her chronometer. Weather front ETA 20 minutes. After that, we're all flying blind. Morrison banked the aircraft sharper, his internal conflict evident in every movement. He was a career officer, 2 years from retirement, with a family that depended on his pension. But he was also a pilot who understood that sometimes the right thing and the legal thing weren't the same. Phantom, he said quietly over internal comms, if you're going to do something, do it fast. I can't hold this pattern much longer. Kira felt a surge of gratitude toward her pilot. He wasn't endorsing her actions, but he wasn't stopping them either. In the strange calculus of military loyalty, that was enough. Viper 6, I need you to illuminate the target area with white phosphorus, she instructed. Mark the enemy positions, not your own. Roger Phantom, marking targets now. Brilliant white streaks arced through the darkness as the SEALs fired illumination rounds toward the converging enemy fighters. The phosphorus painted ghostly shadows across the mountainside, revealing the true scope of the ambush. There weren't 40 hostiles. There were nearly 60, all equipped with modern weapons and night vision equipment. Jesus, Scanner whispered, this is a full company-strength force. Where did they get this kind of hardware? Kira adjusted her targeting solution, accounting for the movement of both friendly and enemy forces. The mathematics of modern warfare were unforgiving. One miscalculation could kill the very people she was trying to save. Weapons hot, she announced again, her voice steady as granite. This time, Morrison didn't protest. The 105 howitzer spoke with the voice of thunder, its massive shell arcing through the night sky like a falling star. The impact shattered a section of ridge that had sheltered at least a dozen enemy fighters, the explosion echoing through the canyon like the wrath of gods. Outstanding shot, Viper 6's voice carried new energy. Enemy forces are breaking contact. we're seeing widespread withdrawal to the north. Through her thermal imaging, Kira watched the surviving enemy fighters scatter like startled insects. The coordinated ambush had collapsed into chaotic retreat. Years of training had taught them to fight American technology, but they hadn't prepared for the surgical precision of a veteran aircrew operating outside the constraints of bureaucratic hesitation. Scanner tracked the fleeing signatures. Confirm multiple hostiles withdrawing. Count shows approximately 20 enemy KIA, remainder in full retreat. Maps plotted extraction routes on her navigation display. Viper 6, recommend you move to LZ Falcon for pickup. It's clear of enemy presence and accessible to rotary wing aircraft. Copy that, Maps. We're Oscar Mike to Falcon now. Reed's voice carried profound relief. Phantom, I don't know what your situation is up there, but you just saved 12 American lives tonight. Morrison's voice was quiet over internal comms. Spectre 7-7, this is Roadkill. Set course for home base. Time to face the music. As the massive gunship banked toward their base, Kira stared out at the star-filled sky. In her peripheral vision, she could see Morrison's reflection in the cockpit glass. Jaw set, eyes forward, prepared to share whatever consequences awaited them. Scanner and Maps were equally resolute, their loyalty transcending rank and regulation. Ground control, this is Spectre 7-7, Morrison transmitted. Mission complete. Friendly forces extracted successfully, 0 friendly casualties. Enemy forces neutralized or dispersed. Copy, Spectre. You're ordered to report directly to the base commander upon landing. No contact with other personnel until debriefing is complete. Kira removed her headset and rubbed her temples. The adrenaline was fatting, replaced by the weight of what she'd done. Career over, certainly. Possible criminal charges for disobeying direct orders, but somewhere below, 12 Navy SEALs were walking out of the mountains alive. Her brother Tommy's photograph smiled up at her from the console, forever young in his dress blues. Worth it, she whispered to his memory. The aircraft flew through the night, carrying its crew toward an uncertain future. But in the darkness behind them, American warriors were heading home, and sometimes that made everything else worthwhile. Colonel Patricia Hawkins paced behind her desk like a caged predator. The walls of her office were decorated with commendations and photographs from 2 decades of military service, but her expression suggested she was contemplating adding disciplinary paperwork to the collection. "Explain to me," she said, her voice dangerously quiet, "how a staff sergeant with 17 years of service decides she's qualified to override direct orders from ground control." Kira stood at attention, eyes fixed on a point 6 inches above the colonel's head. Beside her, Captain Morrison maintained the same rigid posture, though she could sense his tension. Scanner and Maps flanked them, completing the formation of military careers potentially ending in disgrace. "Ma'am, we observed friendly forces in immediate danger with no authorized support available," Morrison replied. "Staff Sergeant Thorne's actions prevented casualties to American personnel." "Captain Morrison, you were the aircraft commander. The responsibility for weapons release rested with you." Hawkins stopped packing, her gaze laser-focused. "Yet my preliminary investigation suggests that Staff Sergeant Thorne acted independently." "No, ma'am," Morrison said firmly. "I authorized all weapons releases." Kira's eyes flickered toward her pilot. He was lying to protect her, sacrificing his own career to shield a subordinate who had disobeyed orders. The gesture was both noble and devastating. "Colonel," Kira said, breaking protocol, "Captain Morrison is." "Did I give you permission to speak, Staff Sergeant?" "No, ma'am." Hawkins returned to her desk and opened a thick folder. "Lieutenant Commander Reed's after-action report makes for interesting reading. He credits your crew with saving 12 lives. The enemy body count was significant, and intelligence recovered from the site suggests this was a planned ambush targeting high-value American assets. She pulled out several photographs showing the destroyed enemy positions. Your targeting was surgical, minimal collateral damage, maximum tactical effect, textbook close air support. Kira remained silent, uncertain where the conversation was heading. However, Hawkins continued, you engaged without authorization, violated direct orders, and created a potential international incident. The host nation government is demanding explanations for American aircraft conducting combat operations in their airspace without coordination. Maps shifted slightly. Ma'am, the host nation government requested our assistance in fighting terrorist elements. The enemy forces we engaged were eliminated by an aircrew operating outside the chain of command, Hawkins interrupted. The political ramifications could destabilize our entire operational presence in this region. The office fell silent except for the hum of air conditioning and the distant sound of aircraft operations. Through the window, Kira could see crew chiefs preparing other aircraft for missions, the endless cycle of military operations continuing regardless of individual consequences. Ma'am, Kira said quietly, I accept full responsibility for my actions. Captain Morrison and the crew were following my lead. Any disciplinary action should focus on me alone. Hawkins studied her with calculating eyes. Staff Sergeant Thorne, your record shows 3 Purple Hearts, a Distinguished Flying Cross, and commendations from 4 different theater commanders. You're also noted for exceptional tactical judgment and unwavering commitment to mission success. The colonel's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Tell me about your brother. The question struck Kira like a physical blow. Ma'am. Sergeant Thomas Thorne, killed in Iraq. I understand his death influenced your approach to combat operations. Kira's composure cracked slightly. My brother died because air support was delayed by authorization protocols. I swore I'd never let bureaucracy cost American lives. And last night, 12 men went home to their families. Hawkins nodded slowly, as if confirming something she already knew. The phone on Colonel Hawkins' desk buzzed with an encrypted call. She glanced at the caller ID, and her expression shifted to one Kira had never seen before, something approaching awe. This is Colonel Hawkins, she answered, then immediately straightened to attention despite being alone in her office. Yes, General. Yes, sir, they're here now. The conversation lasted exactly 93 seconds. When Hawkins hung up, she looked at the 4 aircrew members with an expression that mixed bewilderment with something resembling respect. That was General Patricia Morrison, no relation to Captain Morrison, commander of Special Operations Command. Apparently, the 12 SEALs you extracted were part of a classified counterterrorism operation targeting a high-value individual who's been evading capture for 8 months. She paused, consulting notes she'd written during the call. The enemy force you engaged wasn't random fighters. They were a specially trained unit equipped with advanced weapons and intelligence support. Your interdiction not only saved American lives but disrupted a significant terrorist network. Scanner's eyebrows rose slightly. Ma'am, we had no knowledge of the classified nature of their mission. Which makes your tactical performance even more remarkable, Hawkins replied. General Morrison is recommending your entire crew for commendation. The Joint Chiefs are reviewing the engagement for potential changes to rules of engagement protocols. Kira felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. Ma'am, does this mean? It means, Staff Sergeant, that sometimes luck favors the competent. Hawkins closed the folder on her desk. Your weapons release, while unauthorized, prevented a strategic intelligence asset from being compromised. The political fallout is being handled at levels far above this command. Morrison spoke carefully. Colonel, what's our status? Officially, you're being investigated for violations of engagement protocols. Unofficially, Hawkins almost smiled. You're being fast-tracked for the Distinguished Flying Cross with Valor device, all four of you. The silence in the office was profound. Maps was the first to speak. Ma'am, I don't understand. Staff Sergeant Thorne, the SEALs you extracted were protecting a high-value informant whose intelligence has already led to the capture of 3 terrorist cell leaders. Your actions didn't just save 12 lives, they preserved an intelligence operation that could save thousands. Hawkins stood and walked to her window, gazing out at the flight line where aircraft prepared for another day of operations. The enemy knew about the SEAL team's mission. That ambush was designed to eliminate both the SEALs and their informant. Your intervention disrupted months of terrorist planning. Kira struggled to process the information. Ma'am, we couldn't have known. No, you couldn't, but you acted anyway, based on nothing more than the knowledge that American servicemen needed help. Hawkins turned back to face them. That's what we call moral courage, Staff Sergeant. It's what separates warriors from bureaucrats. The colonel returned to her desk and pulled out 4 sets of orders. You're being reassigned to a Joint Special Operations Unit. Your new commanding officer specifically requested this crew based on last night's performance. She handed the orders to Morrison. Captain, you'll be upgrading to Major and taking command of a specialized close air support squadron. Your mission will be providing immediate response capability for high-priority operations. The transformation was surreal. In the span of minutes, they'd gone from facing court-martial to receiving promotions and commendations. One more thing, Hawkins added. Your new call sign is being changed. You're no longer Spectre 77. She paused dramatically. You're now Angel Flight, because apparently that's what the SEALs are calling you. The briefing room buzzed with an energy Kira had never experienced. Representatives from every major special operations unit filled the space. Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Air Force Pararescue, Marine Force Recon. At the front of the room, a large screen displayed satellite imagery of mountainous terrain marked with tactical overlays. Major Morrison, his promotion had been expedited, stood beside Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Valkyrie Chen, their new commanding officer. Chen's reputation preceded her. Former F-22 pilot, graduate of the Air Force Weapons School, veteran of campaigns in 3 different theaters. When she spoke, people listened. Ladies and gentlemen, Chen began, you're here because conventional approaches to close air support have proven inadequate for the evolving threat environment. The enemy has learned to exploit our authorization protocols, communications vulnerabilities, and risk-averse command structure. She clicked to the next slide, showing a timeline of recent operations. In the past 6 months, we've lost 17 special operations personnel to situations where air support was available but not authorized for immediate employment. The bureaucratic delay between requesting and receiving fire support has become a tactical liability. Kira recognized several of the incidents. Each represented American lives lost while aircrews circled overhead, waiting for permission to engage. Angel Flight represents a new operational concept, Chen continued. You'll be operating under pre-authorized engagement protocols. When Special Operations Forces request fire support, you're cleared to engage immediately based on battlefield assessment rather than command authorization. A Navy SEAL commander raised his hand. Ma'am, what about collateral damage concerns and international political considerations? Excellent question, Commander. Your crew will be equipped with the most advanced targeting systems available, and you'll receive additional training in precision strike techniques. Political concerns will be addressed through enhanced intelligence preparation and careful target selection. Chen clicked to an organizational chart. Angel Flight will operate as a joint special operations asset, reporting directly to SOCOM rather than conventional Air Force command structures. You'll be based at a classified location with immediate response capability for any theater of operations worldwide. Scanner leaned toward Kira and whispered, "This sounds like exactly what we've been asking for." Maps nodded agreement. Real-time support without the red tape. Chen's gaze found Kira in the crowd. "Staff Sergeant Thorne, your performance 3 nights ago demonstrated the effectiveness of this approach. 12 lives saved, enemy network disrupted, strategic intelligence preserved. That's the standard we expect from Angel flight operations." The colonel clicked to a technical specification slide. "Your aircraft will be upgraded with classified sensor packages, advanced communication systems, and next-generation precision weapons. You'll have real-time intelligence feeds and direct communication with ground forces." A Marine Force recon colonel spoke up. "Ma'am, what's the response time expectation?" "From alert to on station, 15 minutes maximum anywhere in theater. From weapons release authorization to impact, 30 seconds maximum." Chen's expression was deadly serious. "We're eliminating the delays that have cost American lives." Kira felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The operational concept was everything she dreamed of, but the responsibility was enormous. Mistakes would be magnified, and there would be no higher authority to blame for poor decisions. "Questions?" Chen asked. Major Morrison raised his hand. "Ma'am, what about crew training and certification for these new protocols?" "You'll spend the next 6 weeks at a classified training facility. Combat simulations, advanced targeting techniques, international law, and cultural sensitivity training. When you emerge, you'll be qualified for immediate global deployment." Chen looked around the room. "Gentlemen, ladies, understand what you're signing up for. Angel flight operations will be scrutinized at the highest levels of government. Success will save American lives and advance national security objectives. Failure could destabilize international relationships and end careers." The room was silent as the implications sank in. Then, slowly, hands began rising around the room, volunteers accepting the challenge. Kira's hand was among the first. The Nevada desert stretched endlessly in every direction, its harsh beauty concealing one of the most sophisticated training facilities in the American military arsenal. Red Flag Station wasn't marked on any civilian maps, and the airspace above it was permanently restricted to military operations. Kira stood on the flight line at 500, watching the sun paint the mountains in shades of copper and gold. Beside her, the AC-130J Ghostwriter gleamed with modifications that transformed it from a conventional gunship into something approaching science fiction. New sensor pods bristled from the fuselage, advanced communication arrays replaced standard equipment, and weapon systems that officially didn't exist were integrated into the fire control computers. "Beautiful morning for target practice," Scanner commented, joining her on the tarmac. His technical sergeant stripes had been replaced by staff sergeant chevrons, another expedited promotion that came with their new assignment. Maps approached carrying flight plans and meteorological data. Wind conditions are optimal, visibility unlimited, perfect conditions for precision strikes. Major Morrison emerged from the operations building with their training officer, Colonel Marcus Reaper Williams. Williams had flown AC-130s in Somalia, Iraq, and Afghanistan, accumulating more combat hours than most pilots flew in their entire careers. His call sign came from his uncanny ability to arrive precisely when enemy forces least expected death from above. "Morning, Angel flight," Williams said, his voice carrying the gravelly tone of someone who'd spent decades coordinating over military radios. "Today we're going to explore the limits of precision engagement." He gestured toward the desert, where barely visible targets had been positioned at various ranges and elevations. "Your mission is to engage 12 targets in sequence while simulated friendly forces maneuver through the area. Margin for error, 0. Any deviation from precise targeting solutions results in simulated friendly casualties." Kira studied the tactical display showing target locations and friendly force movements. The scenario was diabolically complex, a three-dimensional chess game where every move had to be calculated to avoid fratricide while achieving mission objectives. "Ma'am," she said to Williams, "what's the time constraint?" 15 minutes from first target engagement to last target destruction. The friendly forces are following a predetermined timeline. If you're not synchronized with their movement, they'll be in your target zones when you need to engage. Morrison reviewed the mission parameters. "Colonel, this requires split-second timing and perfect coordination. Any communication delays could be catastrophic." "Exactly the point, Major. In real combat operations, you won't have the luxury of extended planning cycles. Angel flight operations require instantaneous tactical assessment and immediate execution." Williams handed Kira a modified headset equipped with advanced communication systems. "You'll be coordinating directly with simulated ground forces using encrypted channels. They'll provide real-time position updates, but you'll need to integrate that information into your targeting solutions faster than ever before." The crew walked through their pre-flight inspection with unusual intensity. Every system check was performed twice, every communication channel tested and verified. The margin for error in their new role was so narrow that equipment failures could mean the difference between success and catastrophe. "Angel Flight, this is ground control," came the voice over their headsets. "Weather conditions optimal, range clear of civilian traffic. You're cleared for immediate departure." As they strapped into their positions aboard the heavily modified gunship, Kira felt the familiar rush of adrenaline that preceded complex operations. But this time, the stakes felt different. They weren't just training for their next mission. They were validating an entirely new approach to modern warfare. "Engine starting," Morrison announced. "Angel Flight is officially operational." The aircraft lifted off into the clear desert sky, carrying 4 aircrew members toward a test that would determine whether their revolutionary approach to close air support could actually work under combat conditions. The training scenario unfolded with ruthless precision. Through her advanced targeting system, Kira watched simulated friendly forces advance through the desert in a complex tactical maneuver designed to test every aspect of Angel Flight's capabilities. Blue force tracker icons moved across her display while target zones lit up in sequence, each requiring engagement within narrow time windows. "Angel Flight, this is Groundhog 6, came the voice of the exercise controller. "First target is active. Grid 37 SMD 12,345, 67,890. Friendlies will be clear in 90 seconds. Kira's hands flew across her control interface, calculating distance, wind drift, and target characteristics. The first target was a simulated enemy command post positioned on a ridge overlooking the friendly advance. Standard engagement protocol would require confirmation from multiple sources and clearance from higher authority, processes that typically took 3 to 5 minutes. "Target acquired," she announced. "Friendlies marked and tracked, engaging in 60 seconds." The 40 Bofors cannon thundered, sending precision rounds toward the target zone. Through her high-definition cameras, she watched the shells impact exactly where intended, destroying the simulated command post without affecting nearby structures that represented civilian buildings. "Direct hit on target 1, scanner confirmed. 0 collateral damage indicators." "Outstanding," Williams' voice crackled over the training frequency. "Target 2 is now active. Grid 37 SMD 23,456, 78,901. Time window, 2 minutes." The second target was more complex. A simulated enemy mortar position located near a building marked as a school. Friendly forces were advancing from 2 directions, requiring Kira to thread precision fire between moving blue icons while avoiding civilian structures. Maps provided real-time navigation updates. Friendly Elements Alpha and Bravo are on schedule. Target window opens in 40 seconds. Kira adjusted her targeting solution to account for the movement of friendly forces. The mathematics were unforgiving. A few degrees of error could result in fratricide, while excessive caution could allow enemy forces to inflict casualties on the advancing friendlies. Engaging Target 2, she announced, then fired a carefully calculated burst from the 25mm cannon. The smaller rounds provided greater precision, but required more skill to achieve decisive effects. Target 2 destroyed, Scanner reported. Friendly forces continuing advance on schedule. The exercise continued for 12 more targets, each more challenging than the last. Enemy positions were interspersed with civilian structures. Friendly forces moved through complex patterns that brought them dangerously close to target zones, and time constraints forced split-second decisions that would have been impossible under traditional engagement protocols. Final target active, Groundhog 6 announced. Multiple enemy positions surrounding friendly extraction point. Time critical, friendly casualties will result if engagement is delayed. Through her targeting system, Kira could see the tactical situation clearly. A squad of simulated friendly forces was surrounded by enemy positions in a circular ambush. Traditional fire support would require sequential engagement of individual targets, allowing surviving enemies to continue their attack. Angel flight protocols demanded a different approach. Requesting immediate weapons release on multiple targets, Kira transmitted. Cleared hot on all designated targets, Morrison responded instantly. Kira engaged with both the 40mm and 25mm cannons simultaneously, walking precision fire around the perimeter of the ambush site. The coordination required was extraordinary, managing two different weapon systems while tracking friendly positions and calculating overlapping fields of fire. All targets destroyed, Scanner confirmed. Friendly forces secure. The radio fell silent as the exercise concluded. Then William's voice returned, carrying a tone of professional satisfaction. Angel flight, that was the most precise and effective close air support demonstration I've witnessed in 23 years of military service. The aircraft banked toward home, its crew having proven that their revolutionary approach to combat operations could work under the most demanding conditions imaginable. 6 weeks of intensive training had transformed Angel flight from an experimental concept into a precision instrument of American military power. As their C-17 transport aircraft descended toward a classified airbase in an undisclosed location, Kira felt the weight of responsibility that came with their new capabilities. The base was unlike anything she'd experienced, a joint special operations facility where secrecy was absolute and every mission could influence global events. Aircraft from every service branch shared the flight line: Navy SEAL delivery vehicles, Army Special Operations helicopters, Air Force stealth fighters, and Marine reconnaissance platforms. "Welcome to your new home," Major Morrison said as they disembarked. The promotion had changed him subtly, more confident in his command presence, more willing to make decisions without seeking higher approval. The weeks of training had shown him that Angel Flight's mission required leaders who could act immediately rather than deliberate endlessly.